Good morning and welcome to the CalSTRS Investment Committee meeting. Christine, would you please take the roll for us?
Yes. For the Director of Finance, Ms. Whitaker.
Present.
Mr. Tang.
Present.
Ms. Yamamoto.
Here.
Ms. Bradford.
Here.
Ms. Hendricks.
Here.
Mr. Gunning.
Here.
For the State Treasurer, Mr. Henning.
Here.
For the Superintendent of Public Instruction, Mr. Patterson.
Here.
Mr. Juarez. Chairperson Keeley, you have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll entertain a motion to approve today's agenda with some flexibility. Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded to approve today's agenda with flexibility. Any objection? Okay, the agenda has been approved. And Christine, do you have a statement to read into the record, please?
Yes. The CalSTRS board meetings are live web streamed, video archived, and available to the public on calstrs.com. Individuals who wish to address the board should wait for the 10-minute public comment period at the end of the agenda item the speaker wishes to address. For comments not pertaining to a specific agenda item, there will be an opportunity for additional statements at the end of the open session. Each speaker is allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to comment. However, if there is not enough time for each speaker to have 3 minutes, the timing will be at the discretion of the chair. Please be advised, while criticism is protected, abusive language or other disruptive behavior that goes beyond protected speech and impedes the meeting's progress may result in the termination of further comment and/or removal if the behavior continues. To protect the privacy of speakers under the age of 18 who wish to address the board, only their first name and affiliated organization may be provided, but other personal identifying information, such as their last name, age, or school, may not be shared. Since the March Teachers Retirement Board meeting, CalSTRS received 6 organized efforts asking for divestment from 5,290 emails. AT&T, CACI International, Caterpillar Inc., Albit Systems, Fossil Fuels, General Dynamics, L3 Harris Technologies, Lockheed Martin, Palantir Technologies, Sempra, Tesla, Total Energies. 1 organized effort urging CalSTRS to halt new investments in Apollo Global Management. 1 organized effort urging CalSTRS to reject calls for divestment from Israel and reject the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. 1 email requesting to divest from the NASDAQ index. 1 organized effort about Home Depot's annual general meeting. 1 organized effort about Volvo's general meeting. 1 email concern about AI investments in companies. 1 email concern about human capital management and civil rights practices of Starbucks Corporation.
Thank you, Christine. And we have our member video. Jonathan, you're going to cue that up. It's a reminder as to our why. Thanks, Jonathan.
There's not a day that goes by where I don't really understand the gift of having 38 students in front of me who are relying on me to make the math make sense. My interest in math was always there when I was younger, but I didn't really fall in love with it until calculus stumped me. The professor actually took me aside and encouraged me to change my major back to ministry because I was failing quizzes at a rate he had never seen. That's what really ignited my passion for helping math make sense to those that hate it, those that think they can't do it, and honestly myself. I wanted to prove to this professor that I was worthy of belonging. I wanted the math that I did in the future to have a direct human impact, no matter what that was. I didn't know it would be teaching at first, but I knew that it had to have some end goal that wasn't just boxing an answer.
That gap would be where Spinny Guy is. Does that make sense?
At Grossmont High School, in the math department, we really believe in equitable access for all students. So most schools, if you come in at Integrated Math 1, which is technically on-track math, you have to go Math 1, Math 2, Math 3, pre-calculus. So those students will never see calculus in their journey. And there's a lot of UC data that shows that students who do not take calculus in their high school career really struggle to complete a STEM degree in the future. That means we're basically saying if these kiddos aren't getting to calc, they kind of don't have a shot at even becoming an engineer. They don't have a shot at becoming the astronaut they might want to be. I am super happy to be leading a team that has made it possible that no matter who you are, no matter what math you place into, you have an open door to get to calculus within your 4 years. Because some of us, we got placed in our math track at 6th grade. How sad would it be that 12-year-old self is going to determine what your whole future is just because of a placement test you took on your way to middle school? We wanted to undo that, and we're really, really proud to have done that. We have about double the numbers of students in AP Calculus than most schools in our district because of this pathway. So out of the 300,000 plus educators in the state, I was chosen as one of 5 to represent a State Teacher of the Year. That's a title I get to hold forever, and now I'm part of this family of California Teachers of the Year that have won in the past, and we get to help welcome those in the future.
We need infinite. So it's going to be.
Thankfully, I'm still jazzed to be in the classroom.
Integral.
But I think what CalSTRS provides me is like an incredible security to know when it comes, I'll be prepared, and I have an amazing foundation that has my back and is ready to kind of help me transition into that next stage of my life. So I hope that my time in retirement with my wife is spent traveling to the places we already love, exploring new places, and having the time to be around, hopefully my own future grandkids, my nieces, my nephews, and just surrounding myself with the people and places I love. And I know that that's possible because CalSTRS is set up for me and is already working alongside me to make that future possible.
What a privilege we all have to have a purpose like that to protect pensions. So we have a second video today, which is a little bit of a self-made video that we did at a recent celebration of a choir program. And I think it was a couple of weeks ago I heard in an interview, a guy by the name of Paul Tudor Jones was at a conference. And in his professional career, he had never felt so troubled by a poll response. He said it was about 100 senior executives in technology and AI in particular. And the polling question of about 100 people in the meeting was, do you believe humans have a soul? And he was being interviewed by Andrew Ross Sorkin and Becky Quick on CNBC. And Becky said, oh, what's the answer? Probably 80%. And Sorkin said 5%. And Paul Tudor Jones said, you're right. 5% of the attendees believed that the human beings have souls. And Tudor Jones began to tear up. This video convinces me we have souls. Jonathan, you want to play it? It's a public school choir where in the cities of Santa Monica and Malibu, the communities came together years ago and said, we need to make sure we can fund the arts in our schools. And each year they celebrate the success of the kids. And many of these children never played an instrument before, and they're introduced to music in kindergarten. And then in the spring of each year, they bring together these choirs from elementary school all the way up to high school. This program is incredible. The teachers, the educators, the kids, the community that support the arts, the music, they go all around the world. And not only do we get to make sure the teachers retire with respect and dignity after a career in public education. Great teachers, good teachers transform people's lives. And, you know, I don't know about you, but I think it's important that we find times to celebrate the joy that is in our lives. Because it's often said that a problem shared is a problem cut in half, a joy shared is doubled. So I watched that, I was like, man, we gotta share that with a larger group of people. Because, I don't know about you, but there's a lot of negative news out there, but there's a lot of good news too, and that's part of it, as well as the video that our team did of our teacher today. So thank you for that. So with that, I think we're gonna go to public comments.
If we could get a 1-minute timer, please. We're going to start with the in-person and then move to the phone. Okay, our first speaker is Amy. And Amy will be followed by John.
Hi, I'm Ana Facio, retired state peace officer. After Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, Starlink was deployed in Ukraine. Musk declined Kyiv's 2023 request to activate internet access in the Black Sea. Trump's January 2025 appointment of Musk to lead DOGE enabled Musk to slash all entities investigating his companies and steer contractors to his companies. Starlink remains by far the dominant player, but how reliable is Starlink when it disrupted critical military communications in Ukraine and the U.S. raised the possibility of cutting Ukraine's access to Starlink as a tool for the critical minerals deal? Can CalSTRS rely on Starlink investments if Trump or Musk decide to cut off Starlink in California?
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be John, followed by Susan.
I'm Dr. John O'Neill. My wife and I are longtime residents of California, and my wife is a former member of STRS. I'm here to ask you to divest from Tesla stock. It's important to do this before the SpaceX IPO. The reason I'm asking this is because Elon Musk, head of Tesla, has repeatedly shown that he does not support values that are consistent with our state government. He has said that DEI should be abolished, and Tesla paid out a multi-million-dollar settlement for racial discrimination. Elon Musk has wielded immense political power and has influenced elections even though he was not elected to power. Instead of DOGE, he's responsible for the cuts to USAID, which have led to the current Ebola epidemic spreading much faster than it would have otherwise, and that's not to mention the thousands of deaths due to lack of treatment for AIDS. In addition, many consider investing in Tesla to be risky.
Thank you for your comment.
Okay.
Our next speaker will be Susan, followed by Tom.
I'm Susan McCarthy from San Francisco. a beneficiary through my husband's work. I'm here with Divest from Tesla. I think there are three different reasons why we could argue that we should divest from Tesla: financial, political, and moral. We've made the financial arguments pretty well. I'm not going to make political arguments. I'm going to make moral arguments. Tesla is controlled by Elon Musk and his captive board of family and friends. Immoral actions include pollution in multiple sites, repeated pollution despite regulatory action. It includes corruption. Doge fired a number of people who were auditing Musk's companies. Principally, I'm going to talk about USAID. Musk says that people should have more children. The termination of USAID caused 800,000 deaths, most of those people children. So there are children he cares about and children he doesn't.
Thank you for your comment.
We should divest from
Thank you for
Tesla
your
because
comment.
it's wrong.
Our next speaker will be Tom, followed by Ruth.
Hi, I'm Dr. Tom Pattison, and Tesla is a tulip. In the late 1600s, as most of you know, people bought tulips because they thought it would go higher, higher, higher. Whoop! And what do we have now? We have trillion-dollar tulips, self-driving promises that don't work and crash, and then shareholders that don't have any input on their investments, just like California teachers don't have input on cafeteria menus. Meanwhile, SpaceX isn't even public, but somehow people are emotionally lusting for the stock anyway. That's why Elon is riding like a rocket in Dr. Strangelove, because the whole thing feels like less like investing and more like a very expensive group hallucination. And the tulips, $3 trillion of tulips. So shareholder democracy matters. Don't speculate on must-be stocks.
Thank you for your comment.
Gravity will prevail.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Ruth, followed by Jeffrey.
Good morning. I'm Ruth Rudetsky, retired teacher and CalSTRS member, here again to ask you to sell Tesla. The financial arguments for getting out of Tesla are as compelling as ever, if not more compelling. But you haven't acted on our financial arguments. So I'm back to the reason I first spoke to you a year ago. Musk's racist agenda has only become more clear, and his stewardship of Tesla, of our money, has become more openly corrupt and more unhinged. Owning Tesla puts CalSTRS and all of us who depend on it on the wrong side of history. It is long past time for CalSTRS to divest from Tesla. Sell Tesla now. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Jeffrey, followed by Andrew.
Hi, my name is Jeffrey Gottesman. I'm a STRS recipient from Nevada County, and I am Jewish. And I'm here to say that as I look at your faces, I think that you, like me, are appalled by the Nazi-level atrocities that are being committed in our name. We are enabling a genocide that is starving 1 million children, committing piracy on the seas against good people who are trying to deliver medical supplies, and teaching German shepherds to rape prisoners who are really hostages. I want us to stop this. It's hard to feel good about our retirement when this is happening in our name. So please use divestment as a tool. Divestment is the peaceful alternative that turns South Africa around.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Andrew, followed by Alana.
All right, good. All right, good morning. I'm a special education teacher from Eureka, California. I'm a member of the California Teachers Association. I've emailed you all many times. I got one response. I tried to email you all individually, got 0 responses. I sent you guys an open letter that the Eureka Teachers Association sent and published in our local news media. Maybe you clicked on the link and saw it. I also sent you the resolution passed by the Humboldt and Del Norte County Central Labor Council that also supports the CalSTRS Divest campaign. Maybe open that one too. So you know why we're here. I'm acknowledging that this is a very small amount of our pension. It's less than 0.5%, but it's a lot more money empirically. It's $3 billion. That's a lot of bombs. This is popular. My local of 200 supports it. More impressively, the LA Teachers Union, a local of 35,000 people, supports it too. The CFT supports it, and community organizations support it. Collectively, over 200,000 CalSTRS contributors support it, and retirees too. A small group of us are here today in person to remind you
Thank you for your
that
comment.
this is Wednesday morning and teachers are teaching in school.
Thank you for your comment.
We're just a
Our next speaker will be Alana, followed by Melinda.
Hi there. My name is Ilana Auerbach, and I'm a practicing Jew. I was raised a fourth-generation Zionist, and over 25 years ago, thankfully, I met some Palestinian people in San Francisco, and the spell of Zionism was broken and has been shattered. And so that is part of what I'm here to do for all of you, everyone. Zionism cannot exist without white supremacy. Zionism is racism. It was mentioned after that beautiful choir that we saw that CalSTRS helps teachers retire in respect and dignity. Well, investing almost $3 billion in a state that has an ongoing and expanding genocide and continues. How many people were massacred today? How many people were tortured? 10,000 people are being held hostage in Israeli prisons, most of them not charged with anything. So divestment is a nonviolent way to end Zionism. Zionism will end. So CalSTRS, be courageous and be a leader. Stop investing in Israel. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Melinda, followed by Andrea.
Hi, Melinda Starr, retired teacher. This is a photo of Hind Rajab. She's one of the tens of thousands of children murdered by Israel in the past 2.5 years. These children have been intentionally killed, shot in the head and chest by Israeli snipers while trying to reach food aid, blown up while seeking shelter in schools, churches, and hospitals, starved to death, or prevented from receiving medical aid in the ongoing genocide that Israel is committing in Gaza. This does not include the tens of thousands more who have sustained life-changing injuries, meaning they've lost one or more limbs, suffered brain injury, or permanent cognitive impairment due to starvation. By purchasing Israel bonds, you are endorsing Israel's brutality. These bonds give Israel unrestricted funds to spend how they wish. Not only has CalSTRS not sold their Israel bonds, since the genocide began 2.5 years ago, you've purchased more. Sell your Israel bonds.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Andrea, followed by Sue.
Good morning, board members. My name is Andrea Pritchett, and I am with the Berkeley Federation of Teachers. I have 35 years of teaching experience, and I'm currently with CalSTRS Divest. As many of you know, we have engaged with conversations with members of your staff. We have reached out to the board. We have tried for the last year and plus to try to find out what we can do to expand your understanding of fiduciary responsibility. Fiduciary responsibility does not mean profit at any cost. We have written Public Records Act requests. We have tried to understand what a company has to do out in the world to get the attention of the board, to get you to examine and engage and review their practices. But we have gotten nothing from you. We have no evidence to suggest that you have engaged in any meaningful review of the practices of Palantir that have helped in this last couple months the displacement of 1 million Lebanese as Israel bombs the south. Please,
thank you for your comment.
Engage.
Our next speaker will be Sue, followed by Oliver.
Hello. I should be in my second period now. But I'm a teacher in Sacramento who will be receiving CalSTRS pension when I put an end to this career. Please tell me how I could be a teacher driven by equity and justice when I know that our retirement money is funding invested in a machine that kills another. The fact that my contribution is funding a genocide is not something that I could accept, and nor should you. Each day, we are tired from 9-to-5 jobs. People are dying and imprisoned. We call upon the board to immediately direct investment staff to divest from Israeli bonds, Israeli banks, Palantir Technologies, Elbit System, Caterpillar, and Lockheed Martin now. You have the power to do so, and each day CalSTRS in action make it known that our money is more important than one's life. A few years from now, our children will have to reconcile with the fact that the world has failed them to stop this genocide in every way possible. Did you do the best? Have we? Divest now.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Oliver, followed by Justine.
Good morning. My name is Oliver. I am a civil rights lawyer and the United Auto Workers endorsed candidate for California Lieutenant Governor, which represent 50,000 educators in our UC systems. When I'm not campaigning, I also coach a youth water polo team. And so I want to tell you guys the story of Mohammed Al-Halik, who is a 9-year-old boy who last year got a new backpack from his mom, went to play soccer, and was shot by Israeli snipers. A child is shot like that by Israel in the West Bank every single week. And there's not only a moral duty, but also a fiscal duty to divest from genocide, because the state of Israel is currently under investigation, under prosecution by the International Criminal Court for committing genocide. And if that case proceeds, as it is likely to do, what is going to happen to our investments? What is going to happen to our teachers' pensions? But not only do you have a fiscal duty, you also have a moral duty to divest, because our tax dollars should be invested in kids here in California instead of bombing children in other countries. Divest now.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Justine, followed by Tim.
Hi, my name is Justine Wiebold, and I'm an Oakland resident asking for the CalSTRS board to direct its investment staff to divest from equities including Chevron, Caterpillar, Boeing, Palantir, Lockheed Martin, Israeli banks, and Israeli bonds. Teachers support divestment and demand Palestinian freedom from Israeli apartheid, with over a dozen California teachers' unions representing over 200,000 teachers now publicly demanding divestment and ethical investment from CalSTRS. Educators are following the lead of the International Association of Genocide Scholars, who have confirmed that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. And yet, armed with this knowledge, CalSTRS continues investing in companies responsible for the deaths of more than 20,000 children and the destruction of an entire education system in Gaza just in the past 2 years. This is not an international issue that rests in the hands of people far away. This is a bloodstain on the hands of we Americans who pay into defense actions that go against our morals and continue a decades-long harm. As a granddaughter of a retired teacher, it doesn't sit well with me that her hard-earned pension funds may have been invested in the killing of Indigenous peoples abroad. I am standing for the legacy of educators all over the state and asking you to not put profit over the lives of people.
Our next speaker will be Tim, followed by Kimberly.
Good morning. My name is Tim Drew. I am neither a teacher nor am I a CalSTRS beneficiary. And I must confess, I don't even have children. I drove up here from Oakland this morning to support my teacher friends calling for divestment from companies whose business model is the production of warfare and human misery. Companies such as Lockheed Martin, Caterpillar, and Palantir, who profit off the utter destruction of the Palestinian people. These companies have a demonstrated complicity in ongoing genocide in Gaza. I urge you to divest from these investments outlined in the CalSTRS Divest Report. We should nurture children, not fund their murder, and not fund their destruction of their schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Kimberly, followed by Mike.
Hello. It's really tall. My name's Kimberly Sloan, and I've been a dialysis technician at Satellite Dialysis, now US Renal, in Santa Rosa for a little over 17 years. I'm also a member of SEIU UHW. More than 2 years ago, we voted to join SEIU UHW because we needed a contract to address the deteriorating conditions we are seeing on a daily basis in our clinics. For many of us, this work is more than just a job, it's a commitment. Our patients come to us 3 to 4 days a week, often for years. We know their families, their struggles, and we are responsible for caring for them during some of the most difficult times in their lives. But since our clinics were acquired by Bain Capital, the impact on our workplace has been devastating. The company cut our retirement contributions in half. At the same time, our healthcare premiums have been increased dramatically while making wages of a local burger chain down the street. These cuts are affecting workers who are already stretched thin. CalSTRS members, California teachers, and retirees.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Mike, followed by Jared.
Hi, my name is Mike. My name is Mike Badia. I also work for Satellite Dialysis Healthcare and U.S. Renal. I've been in the healthcare for over 25 years. I've served as numerous roles as patient care and also as management. I would like to bring concerns regarding the acquisition of Satellite Healthcare by U.S. Renal. Satellite was once known as a nonprofit leader in dialysis care, prioritizing in patient safety, quality outcomes, and investing in both staff and equipment. Since U.S. Renal took over, and they've also invested since U.S. Renal took over and they're backed by a private equity investment, Bain Capital, we've noticed in staffing concerns. While staff continue to do everything possible to take care of our patients, which could be retired teachers, many of the things are going downhill and it's showing profits over patients. I'm running out of time. I wish we had more than 1 minute to talk, but one example is that during audits, they're painting over our machines rather than giving us new machines. This is a life-sustaining treatment, and this is terrible. I could go on and on and on, but it's terrible that we're only getting 1 minute to discuss this. I appreciate you. I forget your name right here. We talked via Zoom.
Thank
10
you for your
minutes more
comment.
of your time would be great.
Our next speaker will be Jared, followed by Guillermo.
Hi, my name is Jared Gaby Beagle from UFCW. Why is the CalSTRS Board of Directors still considering investing money with Apollo when Apollo's leaders are working against teachers, working people in the state of California? Apollo CEO Mark Rowan is the principal author of the Trump administration's Compact for Higher Education, a politically motivated attack on academic freedom which threatens to cut federal funding from colleges and universities based on adherence to right-wing ideology. If he succeeds, many CalSTRS contributing employers could lose funding, and all CalSTRS participants will suffer directly or indirectly from cuts to key public sector institutions. What makes Rowan's activities even worse is that he's doing it not on his own time, but using Apollo shareholders' resources. Based on an investigation by AFT and AAUP, the Financial Times has reported that Rowan directed Apollo personnel to schedule meetings, write letters, and lobby for his personal political causes without explicit approval of the Apollo Board of Directors. On top of these extracurricular activities, Apollo has failed to mitigate workforce management-related risks at multiple portfolio companies, including allegations of union busting, immigration status threats, and sexual harassment. There's no good reason to invest with Apollo. You have multiple investment alternatives that perform well or better. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker will be Guillermo, and Guillermo will also have time for his translator.
Me llamo Guillermo Hurtado y fue empleado de Cárdenas en Las Vegas, Nevada, Cárdenas en propiedad de apoyo. Mientras trabajaba en la cocina sufrí 2 accidentes laborales graves, incluyendo una quemadura de primer grado y una lesión de hombro. Tras sufrir la quemadura, la empresa no me envió al hospital ni reportó accidente. Afortunadamente, los organizadores sindicales me ayudaron con la compensación para trabajadores. El pasado mes de octubre, una compañera de trabajo cercana a la gerencia me preguntó acerca del sindicato. Le respondí que participaba en el sindicato y que asistía a las reuniones. Aproximadamente una semana después fui despedido del Departamento de Recursos Humanos. Me acusó de ser responsable de pérdidas en mi departamento a pesar de yo simplemente estaba siguiendo las instrucciones de los gerentes de desechar la carne no vendida. Para mí resulta evidente que perdí mi empleo por apoyar al sindicato de trabajadores de Cárdenas. Merecemos un lugar de trabajo seguro en un entorno que tengamos la libertad. Organizadores, por favor, ayúdenos siguiendo apoyo RINDA. Gracias.
Gonna translate. My name is Gamir Hurtado. I was an employee at Cardenas in Las Vegas, Nevada. Cardenas is owned by Apollo. While working in the kitchen, I suffered 2 serious workplace injuries, including a first-degree burn and a shoulder injury. After my burn, the company didn't send me to the hospital or report the incident. Thankfully, union organizers helped me with workers' compensation. Last October, a coworker close to management asked me about the union. I told her I was involved with the union and attended meetings. About a week later, I was fired. HR accused me of being responsible for losses in my department, even though I was just following instructions of managers to throw away unsold meat. It's obvious to me that I lost my job for supporting the union. Cardenas workers deserve a safe workplace and one where we're free to organize. Please help us by holding Apollo accountable.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Gustavo, and he will also use a translator.
Buenos días, buenos días. Me llamo Gustavo Escobar, he trabajado para Cárdenas, una empresa propiedad de Apolo, durante casi 4 años, en la tienda de Las Vegas, Nevada. En este momento siento que tengo represalias por apoyar a mi sindicato. Hace un año fui trasladado de otro departamento después de que la asistencia de la tienda me viera hablando con los organizadores del sindicato. Desde entonces me han señalado como partidario del sindicato con el fin de intimidar a otros trabajadores. Los gerentes no me dirigen la palabra a menos que sea absolutamente necesario, lo cual dificulta nuestro trabajo. La gerencia se acerca a otros trabajadores de la tienda casi a diario para decirles que el sindicato es perjudicial para ellos. Han colocado carteles antisindicales en las salas de descanso y de empleados. Estoy aquí para hablar sobre mi situación y en representación de mis compañeros de trabajo. Con el objeto de lograr un cambio en nuestro lugar de empleo, necesitamos respeto, mejores salarios. Les pido exijan responsabilidades.
Thank you for your
a todos.
comment.
My name is Gustavo Escobar, and I've worked in Cardenas, a company owned by Apollo, for almost 4 years at store number 30 in Las Vegas, Nevada. Right now, I'm being retaliated against for supporting the union. A year ago, I was transferred to another department after store assistants saw me talking to union organizers and has since targeted me as a union supporter to intimidate other workers. Managers don't speak to me unless it's absolutely necessary, which makes it hard for us to work. Management approaches other workers in the store almost every day to tell them the union is bad for them, and they put up anti-union signs in employee break rooms. I'm here to speak about my situation for my fellow employees to help make a change in our workplace. We need respect and better wages. I ask that you hold Apollo accountable.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Diana, and she will also have a translator.
Samantha, where are we with the list? How many more speakers do we have?
We are towards the end of our in-person speakers, and then we'll move to the phone.
Thank you.
Hola, mi nombre es María Eloína Diana Pérez Aldaña y he trabajado en Cárdenas, propiedad de Apolo en Ontario, California, durante 3 años. Recientemente sufrí un accidente laboral cuando una puerta suelta de un refrigerador me cayó en la espalda, causándome lesiones graves que siguen afectando mi salud y mi vida. La empresa se ha negado a ayudarme alegando que no hubo testigos. Busqué ayuda a través de un abogado de compensación laboral porque los médicos de la empresa ya no me pueden atender. Desde entonces he sufrido discriminación y represalias. Me asignan tareas que exceden limitaciones médicas y cuando me niego el director amenaza con involucrar a recursos humanos. Les hablo hoy porque ningún trabajador debería sentirse intimidado por defender su bienestar. Es importante que exijan a Apolo que cree un entorno laboral seguro para que podamos trabajar mejor para ustedes como inversionistas. Gracias.
Thank you for your comment.
My name is Maria Diana Perez Saldana, and I've worked at Cardenas Markets owned by Apollo in Ontario, California for the past 3 years. Recently, I suffered an accident at work when a loose refrigerator door fell onto my back, causing several injuries that continue to affect my health and daily life. The company has fought me, claiming there were no witnesses. I sought help through a workers' compensation attorney because the company's doctors told me they could no longer help me. Since then, I have experienced discrimination and retaliation. I am assigned tasks that go beyond my medical restrictions, and when I refuse, the director threatens to involve human resources. I'm speaking to you today because no worker should feel intimidated for standing up for their well-being. It's important that you hold Apollo accountable to create a safe workplace so we can work better for you as investors. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker will be Sarah, followed by Keith.
Hello, my name is Sarah Holtz and I'm from OPEIU. CalSTRS is the biggest U.S. pension fund investor in TP, a global outsourcing company that employs more than 30,000 workers in the U.S. in customer service, language interpretation, and other business support roles. Interpreters employed by TP subsidiaries Language Line Solutions and ZP Better Together, or organizing unions with CWA and OPEIU, but face intransigence from their corporate parent. TP is resisting renewal of its global framework agreement, respecting workers' freedom of association that it neglected in 2022 with Uni Global Union, and in particular resisting implementation in the US. This corporate behavior carries risks of labor disruption and reputational harm. Therefore, investors have a strong interest in encouraging constructive labor relations via implementation of the global agreement. We ask that CalSTRS engage with TP about this. We're happy to meet with the appropriate staff and trustees to discuss this further. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Keith, followed by Alyssa.
Good morning. Thank you for your time, Keith Gibbs, CWA. I ditto what my colleague Sarah just said, and hopefully you'll support us and engage. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Alyssa, followed by David.
Alyssa Giacchino with the Private Equity Stakeholder Project. Good morning. CalSTRS' exposure to private markets has grown to 48% of your portfolio, underscoring the urgency of enhanced diligence, engagement, and governance tools to ensure your risk mitigation is commensurate with your exposure. In order to address governance gaps in private markets, peer pension funds managing over $1 trillion in retirement dollars have labor policies that ensure private equity managers are creating value through productive and proactive workforce management. A comparison of the private equity sponsors of buyout funds that CalSTRS has committed to since 2015 indicates that over 68% of those general partners are already subject to one or more of the existing labor policies in other state funds. This board has heard frequent testimony from workers in industries harmed by private equity. Of course, that includes today, including abuses under general partners investing CalSTRS and teachers' capital. We urge CalSTRS to adopt workforce principles to ensure your general partners are properly managing risk. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be David, followed by Doug.
Good morning. My name is David Mandel. I'm a retired journalist and human rights attorney. My daughter is a member of STRS by virtue of being a school social worker in the Bay Area. I've been in Sacramento for 40 years. And before that, I lived for 10 years in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. So I'm an Israeli citizen as well as a U.S. citizen. People here have more than made the case for the moral case for the divestment from war and genocide. I want to add 3 quick things. One, other countries, other pension funds in many other countries, little by little, are also divesting. They're saying that it's immoral to continue to invest in the genocide that's going on. Number 2, CalPERS itself, CalSTRS and CalPERS have both divested in the past from other countries for moral reasons. It's time to do that here. And finally, more and more Israeli Jews and Palestinians are protesting in the country against the genocide. Not enough, but more and more.
Thank you for your comment.
And all the people I know there tell me to do the same.
Our last in-person speaker will be Doug.
I guess I'm the last in line. Doug Orr from CFT. Apollo Global Management is currently soliciting capital for their new Fund 11. Using the Freedom of Information Act, the AFT and the AAUP has documented that Apollo's CEO, Mark Rowan, has been using company resources to lobby for the Compact for Academic Excellence in Higher Education. Excuse me. Rowan's use of company resources to lobby for the compact is in direct violation of the company's stated code of business conduct and ethics. In addition, since the beginning of 2026, Apollo Global Management's share price has fallen from $152 to $128, while the rest of the market has gone up. As a result, allocating additional funds to Apollo creates both reputational risks for the fund and financial risks for the fund. We at CFT are not asking that CalSTRS divest fully from Apollo. Rather, we are only asking that you not allocate any new resources to
Thank
Apollo
you for your
in the
comment.
future.
We'll now be moving to phone comments. First, we have Ralph, who will be followed by Marcy.
Yeah, hi. I'm a California Community College physics professor. A year ago, I told you that the Tesla robo-taxi service would not be fully deployed. Why is that? If you have a robo-taxi service and it is at fault in killing or injuring people, that will be the end of your service. Waymo understands that. That's why they have a multi-sensor solution. Tesla only relies on cameras, which will make errors and will injure or kill somebody. That's why a year from now, they will still not have a robo-taxi successful service. Divest from Tesla. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Marcy, who will be followed by Karina.
And we have about 10 minutes to go total.
Marcy, go ahead.
I'm Marcy Winograd. Yes, I'm Marcy Winograd. I'm the co-chair of the Central Coast Anti-War Coalition and an elected representative to UTLA's House of Representatives, chair of the CTA Caucus, Jewish and Allied Educators for Palestine. I speak as an individual in support of divestment from war, surveillance, and genocide, CalSTRS divest. And I ask that you begin by agendizing the divestment of Palantir, from Palantir, which is building a master database to surveil you, me, everyone, and detains, deports our students, provides ICE with this information, and contracts with the apartheid state of Israel to kill people in Gaza, to perpetuate genocide in our name.
10 seconds.
CalSTRS board members, you have a lot of power. Please use it. Divest from Palantir, divest from war and surveillance and genocide.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Karina, followed by Chris.
My name is Karina. I'm an English teacher from Los Angeles, and I recently learned that CalSTRS invests money in the plight of Palestine. As an educator and one who strongly believes in social justice, I do not agree with our money being used in unethical ways. This investment is antithetical to our core values, and we demand that CalSTRS must immediately investigate and divest from genocidal investments such as Palantir, Caterpillar, Lockheed Martin, Albert Systems, and Israeli bonds and banks. There are precedents from CalSTRS previously divesting from private prisons due to grassroots activism for ethical reasons. This is no different. We call on the investment staff to sell and not to buy Israeli bonds. Israeli bonds have great reputational risk. 3 states have already divested from Israeli bonds, and politicians are distancing themselves from Israel in the elections. We ask CalSTRS to do the same and move the money to lower risk bonds. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Chris, followed by Susanna.
Hi, my name is Chris. I am a Palestinian educator, and I'm calling in regards to divesting from Israel bonds. It has come to my attention that y'all have bought 2 bonds even after 6 months of witnessing Israel burn people alive, crush them under the roofs of their homes, and snipe children. These 2 bonds mature in 2034 and 2054. They were purchased in March 2024. So your ESG policies clearly did not translate to whoever was in your investment staff who decided to go for purchases. I'm concerned that the purchases of those Israel bonds were made for political reasons and ideological reasons and violated your own policies on how to guide investment. I'm asking for you to investigate why those were purchased in spite of your policies and to sell your
Thank
Israel
you for your
bonds and
comment.
not buy anymore.
Our next speaker will be Susanna, followed by Sean.
Hello, my name is Susanna, and I'm a science teacher in Los Angeles Unified School District. I'm calling today also to ask you guys to divest from Israel and from Palantir. Most teachers I know would not spend their own money supporting companies that hurt the kids that we teach and hurt other children. And so having it happen on our behalf with our own money is incredibly frustrating. This is one of those things where our modern version of society requires you guys to act on our behalf. And we're asking for you guys to behave ethically and make purchases that reflect the values and needs of the community. And so please, please, please divest from Israel, from Palantir, from Caterpillar, from Lockheed Martin. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Sean, followed by Samira.
I'm speaking on behalf of the American Association of University Professors. California's higher education system is under attack from the current administration in Washington, D.C. That attack threatens the campuses where CalSTRS members work and the beneficiaries this board is obligated to protect. Mark Rowan, CEO of Apollo Global, is the architect of this agenda. Rowan used his position at UPenn to test a strategy to destroy universities. His words, not mine, and then help take that agenda national through the administration's Higher Ed Compact. Public records show Rowan used Apollo resources to pursue this agenda. Rowan also funded the Penn-Wharton budget model, which has been used to oppose student loan relief, and Apollo controls the notorious for-profit University of Phoenix. Rowan says culture eats strategy for lunch. At Apollo, that culture starts at the top. AAUP urges CalSTRS to make no additional investments with Apollo and to protect educators' retirement funds. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Samira, followed by Justin.
Name Samira, work various schools, LAUSD. CalSTRS wrong side of history, approaching public humiliation and possible termination of legal legitimacy. Pressure for divestment set to increase when majority California teachers learn of bloody investments in weapons, tech, and Israeli bonds. Israel tortures and rapes Palestinian captives as young as 12 years old. Soldiers snipe children for fun. List of crimes continues. CalSTRS board, plausibly Zionist, definitely bloodthirsty, invested in Israeli bonds purchased March 2024 during Israel's carpet bombing of Gaza. Currently witnessing historic fall of Israeli regime, 2026 polls show American support for Palestine surpasses that of Israel. Entities still standing with Israel in violation of International Geneva Convention and looking pedophilic, possibly witnessing beginning of CalSTRS end. CalSTRS committing crime of supplying state committing genocide. Stop CalSTRS, stop the crimes, divest now.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Justin, followed by Judy.
Hi, my name is Justin Evans. I'm a organizer with the National Union of Healthcare Workers. I represent workers at Kindred, Brea, and Westminster. They are owned by Apollo Global, and we filed several ULPs against the employer for retaliation, for us going on strike, locking our members out an additional day, as well as surveilling our members in their break rooms. For these reasons, and the reasons other members of the public have spoken, we strongly encourage the board to adopt protective labor-conscious policies that will help make sure teachers' retirement contributions are not being used to fund worker exploitation, surveillance, retaliation in their own state. Please do not invest any more into Apollo Global.
10 seconds. Oh, thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Judy, followed by Gabriella. Judy, go ahead.
Oh, okay, sorry. Hi, my name is Judy Greenspan. I am a Jewish Oakland teacher, currently on the executive board of the Oakland Education Association. In October 2024, the OEA passed a strong resolution demanding that CalSTRS immediately divest from all industries currently profiting from the U.S.-backed Israeli genocidal war against the people of Palestine. To date, CalSTRS has done nothing to ensure that our pension money goes to support life rather than war and death. The OEA demands immediate divestment from Palantir, Boeing, Caterpillar, General Dynamics, Maersk, to just name a few. As teachers, we mourn the deaths of tens of thousands of children who have been brutally murdered by guns and bombs financed by our pension funds. This has to stop. As teachers, we demand that our pension funds be used to fund education, not occupation. CalSTRS, get on the right side. We need schools, not bombs.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Gabriella, followed by Guy.
My name is Gabriela Chavez, and I'm from the Bay Area. I understand that fiduciary responsibility is important for the stewardships of this teacher's retirement fund. However, CalSTRS, I don't understand that your board members are overriding your own ethical investment policy for Israeli bonds that aren't even bringing in a basic or decent return. Teachers and the public need to dig deeper as to why this bond that supports a country that is violating international law, practicing apartheid, and in the middle of an active genocide, along with assaulting various neighboring countries in the interest of expansionism, has not been sold off or replaced with a better investment. CalSTRS is not acting in the best interest of its shareholders, both morally and financially, by not selling this bond for a better investment. It is beyond time you do so, and we can help you find a better investment with one of our financial experts.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Guy, followed by Quinn.
Hi, good morning. My name is Lisa Latierra, and I'm a 24-year-old from Los Angeles County. And I was formerly employed as a part-time caregiver by a retired LAUSD fifth grade teacher. While I didn't know it at the time, my ability to live and work, although brief, was made possible by the California State Teachers Retirement System. While I'm here for the divestment of Israeli bonds, it is clear that there are various investments in CalSTRS' portfolio that directly antagonize the health and prosperity of students, families, and working people both here and abroad. Why? I'm sure you guys have plenty to think about, but if you remain committed to these investments, I would like to know why. I think transparency and public justification makes it so that we can have more dialogue to find out why is this happening in the first place. The case is clear to me, but I don't know what it's like on your guys' end.
10 seconds.
I hope it is a valid justification. And if not, I think it merits discussion and review. So thank you very much. Obviously, I want divestment.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Our last phone caller will be Quinn.
Hello, my name is Quinn Ide, and I work with Fossil Free California. You hear from divestment activists at every board meeting. We continue to show up because money is power. Where you put our pension funds has substantial impact on what companies, ideas, and wars grow and which don't. You claim that you're unable to be political and must solely pick your investments based on which investments make the most money, but that is taking a side. You control hundreds of billions of dollars. Acknowledge and wield your power for good. Use teachers' dollars to invest in our lives. Your investments in Lockheed Martin and the Israeli war machine are not only funding genocide in Palestine, but also funding one of the largest polluters globally. Just the Gaza genocide in 18 months produced more emissions than many countries do in a year. The war machine is more polluting than the entire airline industry. It is time that you seriously reconsider your investment criteria. You are investing in teachers' futures. Use it to invest in teachers and students' safe and healthy futures, not only in California, but globally, not just for dollars in our pockets.
Thank you for your comment. That is the conclusion of public comment for item 2.
I thank the members of the public who spoke here today personally and those who dialed in. I want to thank Samantha and the team for coordinating those public comments. We will adjourn and go into closed session in the board's lunchroom. Thank you. We're back in, we're ready, Jonathan? Terrific. We're back in open session, and we will go we have nothing to report out of closed session. We'll go right to our CIO's report. Scott Chen. Scott?
Great, I'm wearing my old man glasses. Michael called me an old man this week, so living up to that tag. I'm going to cover two topics in my CIO report. One is to talk a little bit about the role of private markets and alternatives. I think that's topical. And then I want to make an announcement. The couple of people in the splash zone, so I'll keep you in suspense for that. Let's see, can I scroll forward? With or without glasses, I'm not scrolling forward, it looks like. All right, well, anyways, I think as you all know, the market has been on a tear. If you looked at the last 3 years, 6.7% annualized returns in the S&P, ending March 31st, 2026. So, but despite that performance, you all also know we've climbed the wall of worry on so many issues. Just this year, this calendar year, the markets have been digesting the energy shock with the war in Iran. We've been welcoming, though, the AI CapEx spending boom, but there's been big divergences around winners and losers. Now, semis being one of the big winners, software stocks, some of the big losers. We've also seen a big move in the long end of the curve as interest rates have risen. But in my opinion, I keep going back to three things that stand out to ensure our success. Number one is diversification. So the stock market is becoming more concentrated with the Mag 7 and tech stocks. We need to ensure that the total fund is diversified. Liquidity management, we need to ensure that we have ample liquidity, particularly when there might be a downturn in the market or a crash in these really uncertain times. I don't think I can, oh, actually I can scroll. Sorry about that. So given I think the run up in stocks, it's tempting to allocate more to public markets and allocate away from private markets. But I believe that that would be unwise because you can never time the markets, and the role of private markets and alternative assets is diversification primarily. So you can see our asset allocation and what's in our public markets and what's in the private markets and alternative assets. So in achieving our mission and goals, we want the highest probability or the best chance of meeting or exceeding that 7%. And a diversified portfolio lowers the risk of not being able to fully fund our pension liabilities. That's why, call it 45 to 50% of our portfolio is in the private markets and alternatives. It's not just private equity, it's private credit, it's real estate, it's infrastructure, risk mitigating strategies. You've heard me talk about the benefits, for example, of infrastructure in this environment. We're going through a fixed asset boom. There's opportunities in AI, the AI CapEx spending, energy, power, infrastructure writ large as the supply chains globally are being rewritten. But beyond the opportunity set, it's inflation protected. There are cash flows that are high yielding. It's uncorrelated to the rest of our portfolio. And that's just one of the examples. So our portfolio, as you know, it's not just diversified across asset classes, but also economic regimes, higher or low inflation, higher or low GDP growth, and different types of risk factors. So I always think that it's always tempting to chase the highest returns. But the problem is no one can time the market. If Alan was here, he would coin that phrase ad nauseum. We've been in a bull market, but the markets have been climbing this wall of worry. The Iranian war, higher interest rates, sticky inflation, tariffs. So when your portfolio is more concentrated, you're going to be taking greater risks of not achieving your goals. So that is the big role of why we're in private markets and alternative assets and why we continue to maintain that. I think implementation though in the private markets also in alternative assets, it matters a great deal. And CalSTRS' approach has been part of the collaborative model. So as we think about transparency, we've talked about this in the past, but for large institutional investors like CalSTRS who have the resources to monitor and oversee, our transparency is typically very high. And a good example is our cost report, where virtually 99% of all the expenses that are paid, we account for, right? We have that level of visibility. And as you know, through the collaborative model, we've saved roughly $2.6 billion over the last years in fee savings while delivering higher returns to the teachers, beating our benchmarks. This hasn't been as important, but I think it will be important going forward, which is 65% of the private markets portfolio we control. So we have the option to pivot, stop investing, and I think that's crucial in managing risks in a dynamic, uncertain environment. And so, how we implement and how we engage, as we just talked about, really matters as well. I'd like to pause here also and just invite Steve McCourt to make some comments as well about perhaps the role of private markets in this environment.
Great, Steve McCourt from Makita. One thing I would add, in addition to all the comments that Scott made, that continues to attract large institutional investors to private market investments is just general diversification. We've seen in the last particularly year or two, the public markets becoming increasingly concentrated in large technology companies. Private equity as an asset class provides exposure to many sectors and industries and sizes of companies that are less and less available in the public markets as well. So there's a strong argument that including private equity in your portfolio enhances diversification in a portfolio, in addition to hopefully producing the types of returns that you see up on the screen here as well.
Great. Well, now let me just go to the second part, which is the splash zone. You have some folks sitting behind me, and I'm really pleased to announce that after a competitive search that I've promoted Josh Diedish to the role of Director of the Total Fund Management Division. You've really embarrassed Josh by just doing that, but yeah, keep it going. In this role, Josh is going to help to build out our asset allocation, risk, and the balance sheet management to support the one fund approach. And I just want to say personally, he has been critical, absolutely critical in working with me as we have a vacant senior investment director position in the Total Fund Management Division. We really haven't lost a step in the progress of that, and I think most of that is due to Josh, so I really thank him for that. Some of Josh's defining characteristics include curiosity, a team-first mindset, collaboration, and his deep, deep technical expertise in asset allocation, risk management, and balance sheet management. And I've really had the pleasure of seeing Josh grow as a leader with his abilities also to manage people, to lead people, build teams, communicate at various levels, and really help me again envision the one fund approach here and help to build that. Now, a couple of few fun facts I think about Josh is, and I always aspired to this when I was in high school. I remember history class was one of my favorite topics, and I remember studying the Renaissance men. Josh is one of those Renaissance men. And, if you looked at his career, he was hired 22 years ago as an intern here at CalSTRS by none other than Chris Ailman in 2004. So he has had just a broad range. You think about that Renaissance man having multiple expertise in multiple disciplines, first in fixed income, where he was there during the GFC, helping to manage through that crisis. In 2013, he moved from fixed income to innovation and risk, which today has become the Total Fund Management team. And he really helped us build our internal strategic asset allocation capabilities. Now we kind of take that for granted, right? We're doing that like clockwork. He helped to develop the RMS program as part of that. And he's not only a Renaissance man at work, he's a Renaissance man in his personal life too. I used to say that you wanted to get on Mike DeRay's Christmas list. I think you want to get on Josh's Christmas list because he makes paper, wine, bread, cheese, and he's quite a chocolatier, where he knows some great chocolate. So anyways, Again, please congratulate our Renaissance man, Josh Diedisch. Speaking about interns, I think we have the green team here. Is that why it's green? Our first cohort of summer interns are also in this splash zone, which Josh was there in 2004, 22 years ago. Maybe we've got another Josh in this crowd. Please stand and be recognized, our interns. All right, well, that's all I have for the open session for my CIO report. Are there any questions, thoughts?
I don't see any. Scott, thank you so much. Thank you. And congratulations, Josh, and welcome to the interns. So we'll go to the next item on the agenda. Which is the shared vision, which is, again, led by Scott and Geraldine. And Stephanie and Steve are here as well. And turn it over to you, Geraldine. Or is it going to Scott?
Great, yeah.
Go ahead, Scott.
I'll kick it off. I'm waiting for the presentation to be pulled up. Here we go, thank you.
Why don't we, for purpose of just the item itself, we'll hear the presentation and then we'll take Q&A. Okay, Scott?
Great, thank you. I'm really personally excited and very enthusiastic about our shared vision. I think it fulfills something that we've been lacking in the investment division. And really the purpose is for us to develop our long-term goals to maintain CalSTRS as a global allocator, a top global allocator. And it's really intentional around how do we need to build for the long term. And we're going to be developing actionable priorities around that. So let me just give you this slide. This slide's a little bit busy, I admit, but it's just so informative. But I think what you see in the light blue on the very top, the CalSTRS mission, what you see in the dark blue are the components of the vision that will eventually make a recommendation for you to approve. And in the red is the strategic CalSTRS strategic plan. This is meant to be highly integrated, right? So our mission virtually will never change, right? That's our purpose, to secure the retirement future of our over 1 million teachers. The vision, and this is not something which we created yet, this is the first time we're doing in investments, it's really who do we want to become? What do we need to build over the long term? And this may change, over, call it a decade. And then you have the CalSTRS strategic plan. How are we going to achieve that mission and vision through the strategy and milestones, action plans? That, as you know, is I'm part of that. That's run by Cassandra, our CEO. Every 3 years, that's also approved by the board. Again, I'm really passionate about this because the investment division has never had this longer term vision, but you've got to be very intentional in terms of what you need to build over the long term. And let me just give you a brief example to bring it to color. You'll be hearing from our RMS director. He's got a fantastic vision for that unit. He's bringing us forward in some of the collaborative model investing, thinking about internal and direct investing in some of those areas. That will likely bring us to trade futures and derivatives. And if we start to do that at scale, well, that's mainly done out of London. So if we think about the trajectory, if we succeed and we do that at scale, we've got to be thinking long-term about building, potential international offices or outsourcing that to some degree. And in other words, you have to have that longer-term vision to pair with your strategy to make sure that you're intentional and you can get there in a timely manner. Just like the strategic plan, all of that in blue, we're going to be bringing that to, or the dark blue, that is, we'll bring that as a recommendation to the board to be approved in the November investment committee. And we'll bring a first reading in September. And then after approval, again, in the red you see in the bottom, then once the board approves that, staff will start to diagram that out in the strategic plan and develop more action steps and milestones, which is also approved by the board every 3 years. So again, now just focusing on the dark blue, our recommendation is going to include 6 components. So far, you know, the top 2 we've already defined. Number 1, the vision of becoming a top global allocator and why. And then the 5 guiding principles or characteristics that Geraldine did a great job in presenting in the last meeting. We'll go through some of that again today. We'll spend some time in areas that we actually haven't covered, which are the bottom blue areas today, talking about key drivers of change internally and externally. Why are we doing this? The framework for a bold goal, I think Geraldine's going to cover some of that. The long-term outcomes related to this vision and areas that we believe we need to intentionally grow. So we'll start, that's the presentation today. We'll go through some of those items.
Before we go to Geraldine, I want to, Madam Controller has joined us in the dais, reflect that, and acknowledge Patrick. Mr. Henning, you're in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome, Ms. Controller. I just, as you guys contemplate this, it'd be great, and I'm sure it's coming in the larger perspective, but how the board interacts with this, and I'm sure we're eventually going to get there, but I think that selfishly, it's always good to see how we, and I think the public would like to know how we interact with the investment staff, as we just did, and as we come back to appreciate it.
Yeah, and that's great. I can just maybe mention a few things up front. One is that we'll be bringing the vision as a recommendation for your approval, as well as all the other investment committee members. Secondly, as we develop the action plan and CalSTRS strategic plan, that also is approved by the board. As part of this, there could be a build out as we're talking about building over the long term. So resources, technology, those are items that will also be brought to the board to consider as part of that building out process. So those are just a few things, but there's more to come. And highlighting that, that's a great suggestion. Thanks, Patrick.
Is that fine, Mr.? Are you fine?
I always am, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henning. Geraldine.
Yes, hello. Nice to talk to you. So I'm going to remind you where we were last time I presented in March. The first part of this project took about, actually a little over 6 months. It was the listen and engage. So it wasn't 1 or 2 individuals that came up with what does it look like to be a top allocator. It was, we engaged Amy McDuffie from Mosaic. We surveyed all of our staff. Then we had working groups with the staff to drill down on what does it mean to be a top allocator. Scott did interviews with all of the board members. We also engaged our stakeholder groups with Lucas Public Affairs and Diane Stanton. We had our peers in last September, if you recall. We had Australian Super, we had Wisconsin State Investment Board, and then we had Ontario teachers. So all this input, what from their perspectives, from our perspectives, what does it mean to be successful and a top global allocator? So next slide, please, Scott. So these were thank you. These were the 5 areas, and I'm going to just briefly go over them again because I think it's really important to talk about how we move forward is to understand these key components. A top allocator is really clear on why they're there. What are they trying to do and what is their mission? Well, we do that really well, actually. We are very clear. We're here for the teachers. The staff feel very engaged. They know what they're trying to succeed and what they're trying to accomplish. I think you'll see tomorrow on the funding plan, we're clear, we're here to fund the pensions. But that's important, we already have that. Second category was world-class talent. You have staff that represents the global economy, the global world you're investing in, private, public, and it's not just investing, it's investment services, it's legal teams, it's teams across, consultants, it's a whole array of groups that support how we invest. That you notice is a little bit in red. We think we need to focus on that in the future. So more to come there. Smart execution. You can just read into that technology. And you already know about this. You know we're focused on it. Staff identified this as the greatest risk to us being successful in the future. everything we know about our portfolio is through technology. We have lots of securities, lots of holdings. We got to be able to analyze it. We got to see it in real time. That is a focus, and you've already been hearing about that, and you'll continue hearing about it. It's not in red because we have a plan. It's moving forward. Organizational agility. We need to be flexible and nimble to compete in the environment. We are in a competitive environment. There's other investors willing to invest. They already have the technology. They're way ahead of us. They don't have the structures we have. Obviously, we're a public entity. They're different than us. There's an area we think we need to focus on, and how can we improve that in the future? So more to come on that one. And partner of choice. We don't invest alone. We do rely upon our partners and all of the service providers we have. We have to be a good partner and leverage all of the resources out there. And you notice that's not red because we actually do find, through, again, listening to all of these groups, we are a partner of choice. We just need to maintain that. So there's 5 areas that are really important to think about as we go forward and thinking about how we become and maintain, because actually we did, we all agreed at the end of the day, we actually are a top allocator, but how do we maintain that in 10 years out? So next slide, please. So Scott, you're going to go into some of the key drivers of change we found during this process.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Here we go. So, I wanted to cover some of the key drivers of change because they form the basis or part of the reason why you need to continue to be intentionally evolve over time to maintain a position as a top global allocator, both internally and externally. We've been changing and shifting and need to evolve. And so if you looked over the past several decades, there have been really 3 large internal themes in my mind. Number 1 is our asset growth. So a couple of decades ago, we had 158 billion in assets under management. Today, it's 400 billion. Yesterday, 415 billion, call it. So the scale by which we invest today is incredible. And if we are to be successful, think about it this way, every dozen years, we create a whole new CalSTRS. So if we're successful, 12 years from now, perhaps we'll be 800 billion in assets under management. The second is diversification. So to increase the probability of full funding and lower risk, I mentioned this in the CI report, increased allocations to some of the more complex asset classes like infrastructure or private equity, private credit, real estate, RMS or hedge fund-like strategies. The third is greater in-house management or internalization of assets through the collaborative model. So today, kind of north of 85% of what we do in the public markets, we do directly with our own investment team. And in the private markets and alternative assets, a lot of that we do in a collaborative model structure, whether it be co-investments or joint ventures or structures where we own part or all of an asset management or the majority of it, of ownership. So those are complex types of structures as well. And this internal evolution, as many of you know who've been on the board for some time, it's meant we've needed greater staff resources, greater expertise for the build out to manage complexity and mitigate operational risks. And so we're doing this though for a purpose. And so taking on these internal changes was challenging for staff. I feel that's like the road less traveled, but the investment in people, systems, infrastructure, and all that change that staff has undergone created much, much more value for the teachers and got us closer to the goals. And so here, if you looked at the top center, we've increased our funding ratio with annualized returns of 8.1% over the last decade, higher than our actual rate of return at 7%. That's a stale number at 76.7%. David Lamoureux has a new number for the funded ratio. I think you'll be happy with it. I'll let him disclose that tomorrow. Risk, and how we mitigate that has been important too. Our realized risk has been roughly 30% less than in our reference portfolio. And bringing our assets in-house, as mentioned, we've saved money from having to hire external managers. So roughly $2.6 billion over the last, call it 8 years in estimated fee savings. And it's not just fee savings that have created value, but the expertise of staff the structures that they created that were more complex, they've been able to exceed the benchmarks by $21.7 billion over the last decade. So you can say even with the value that was created above the benchmark, every dollar we spent on hiring staff has generated about $34 in excess returns. And so I think there's the evolution in the past, and these are still drivers in the future, right? Asset growth, a bit more complexity, continuing to do more and more in-house management are drivers, again, of the future. But we're doing it in a space where the competition continues to change rapidly. You heard me talking initially when we were advocating to accelerate the collaborative model, that one of the most profound changes was we're competing now globally with more and more funds. And that was one of the more profound elements because these organizations were larger than CalSTRS. They were actually more well-resourced, right? They have more staff. And they were private organizations, so they could be a lot more nimble than our organization. And so if I look forward over the next decade, there are more changes coming with the competition. And we created the cloud model in order to compete globally. I think more folks will come our way and compete in a hybrid model because it's difficult to go truly direct, particularly in the private markets. Beyond this competition, I see growth in several areas of competition in private and alternative markets, in particular, sovereign wealth funds and the creation of those. I met a fund the other day, which is starting up at close to $1 trillion. That's their startup capital. That's a huge sovereign fund to compete with. High net worth individuals are becoming more active and will be growing. Retail investors and insurance companies. And so as more capital enters the market, we're going to be, less of a focus in terms of our scale because other organizations are going to, dwarf us and the market will keep growing. And so it's really going to be building around our strengths, expertise, our long-term investing, having scale, the relationships and trust that we've built, being a partner of choice. But there are also structural shifts in the market. There's been an ongoing convergence. Oh, did you have a question, Steve?
Are you back? Okay, got it? Come on.
Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, question. So you picked 2036 for a reason, I'm assuming.
Or 2020.
36 on the competitive landscape question, if you go back
Oh,
to that?
yeah.
Why?
I'm just looking forward a decade, like how is this going to change?
So where are we at today in these circles?
I would argue that we've moved from maybe a moderately competitive fund to a top global allocator today.
Okay.
And it's about how do we maintain this as we go forward, given all the external changes and structural changes, as well as our own evolution.
So that's our goal, is to keep it where we're at, but maybe move even within that group.
Yeah. But it gets tougher because more capital is entering the market, as I was suggesting. There's also structural changes, too, that I'm about to talk a little bit about.
I appreciate it.
And Jildy?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, if you recall, last September when we had SWIB out in Australian Super, they talked through some of their challenges. So while we are a top allocator, all of those top allocators are facing challenges and they're having to work through them. So it gets to, yes, we're here. Can we stay there?
And I think it was important for us to and Geraldine covered this, to internally define what we believed we needed to do to be a top allocator, but recognize now that we're competing globally, that competition is changing, and we also see structural changes coming. One of the ones that I would call out is the convergence of public and private market opportunities. And so if you think about that, just think about this build out of the AI CapEx cycle. We're going to need to speak quickly for larger check sizes, and really work seamlessly across all the divisions to decide what we want to finance. Because in these data center deals, it's real estate, the data center itself, it's power, the utilities, it's energy connecting to that utility. And so we're finance, and these are very large endeavors, between 25 to $50 billion types of endeavors to finance. They're both equity and they're debt, and they're public and they're private, right? And so all this is to say is that we need to be writing larger checks, be nimble, coordinated as one organization. And this is behind our efforts as part of the shared vision and our strategy for the one fund approach and even our technology transformation, because those are needed in this new design. Geopolitics, I don't even probably need to mention that, but that's really driving a lot of uncertainty and volatility. So we're going to need to be more dynamic in our asset allocation and manage our liquidity and risks to a different degree in the future. We always want to be a provider of liquidity when the markets are down, for example. And so again, this is about how we strengthen our portfolio construction and risk management. It's part of the one fund approach, but also as part of our work plan with the board and portfolio resiliency. Talking about technology advancements, AI and technology advancements is changing how we invest, but also transforming virtually every portfolio company, right? So that's something that we need to be a lot more adaptive to in the future. And really, I think why I'm describing this again, the punchline is that all these internal and external changes, as Steve was alluding to, are reasons why we have been shaping our shared vision together with our strategic plan, all to ensure that we can continue to accomplish our mission, not only now, but out to 2036 and beyond even, for teachers, generations and generations from now. So I'm going to move on unless there's more questions.
I think before you do, Scott, is there anyone in the queue? Okay, I don't see anyone. I'd like.
Are we waiting till the end of the presentation?
We're going to go back to Geraldine in a second. But on Scott's presentation and the comments so far, I'd like to be sure. One, as we talk about remaining a strategic partner of choice, and as we continue to work through this visionary process, to what extent will we have opportunities to engage in conversation with each other as to how we are thinking about the other side of the equation, which partners and what do we look for that strategic partnership, the qualifications, the norms, the cultures of organizations? Will that be part of our conversation?
Yeah, it's in a couple of junctures. So we're going to have a facilitated session in the July offsite. So that'll be one juncture. And of course, as we march to a first reading and recommendation in September and November, the other element is part of our portfolio resiliency plan. We are studying alignment. So we'll be deeply engaged with you and the rest of the investment committee members on that very topic. Also in July and September and maybe February are the dates for those.
Terrific place for the Makita team to help us think through what we should have in place. I mean, we've had so many conversations, some publicly and some that are in private session, about norms, the move towards private markets, guardrails, et cetera. So we'll be looking to Steve and his team, the team at Makita, to help us as a committee to engage in an appropriate dialogue with the staff on a forward-looking basis. The second one, I think, is more of a request, and it would be on the legal side. If we go back to that other slide about technology, is the role, the fundamentally altering of underwriting investments to the extent that AI tools and technology is being used to in the underwriting process, how that impacts fiduciary decisions. And perhaps that's a request for, at some future date, the legal team opining on that. as to, we're learning more and more about these tools that are being used, the tension that it may create around fiduciary responsibility, making sure fiduciary responsibilities, and we're meeting our fiduciary standards, and the staff is, and our partners are in the underwriting, when they're using these tools, will it pass the test? Is that?
That's a great question, actually, a discussion I've been having with your fiduciary counsel. I do think that there's a shift in now analytics that are going into investment decisions, a lot more reliance on technology. And you know, they're process focused. So it is something we're working on, so I'm happy to report back on.
Yeah. So it's on your radar
definitely
screen.
on my radar.
Great, terrific, yeah. And I think we'll all learn more. All right, back to you guys. Geraldine? I'm sorry, Ken Tang. Ken, you're in the queue.
I think my not so much my questions, but I think it's something to think about since you were talking about all the different characteristics of being a, I guess the allocator of choice. I'm always thinking about the people. And so looking at our staff and developing the bench, the farm system, since we have our interns here, they are the futures. And so I was, looking at how you talked about, and a dollar invested in staff earns 34 in excess in returns. And I definitely like that return rates. And so I was curious about, what our plans in terms of, developing, recruiting and retaining and developing young talents within the organization. Right now we have, over 200 staff members in terms of the investment department. How is that in terms of, definitely we're going to be looking to expand that, but how do we retain world-class, talents? Obviously, we have a lot of world-class talents here. How do we retain them, given that we are a public entity, in that sense? And so, we always talk about, CalSTRS and our secret sauce and how people choose to stay, but how do we also maintain that competitiveness amongst other global allocators?
Yeah, and that's a great question, Ken. As we looked at the top, the 5 characteristics that you all and we all helped to define, the 2 areas that we thought world-class talent and organizational agility were 2 areas for us to intentionally build. Some of these areas, like partner of the choice, we think we've gone far away, and there's still room to evolve and improve. But in one of the areas that you just discussed, world-class talent is an area that we're going to be a lot more focused on and intentionally building. The next generation, all of our senior leaders and staff is involved in thinking about this. We have a fantastic culture. I think one of the things that defines our culture is growing people. And despite technology, I think that what is going to, let's just take technology to an nth degree. If intelligence becomes commoditized, the judgment is going to become more important. Soft skills, being able to develop relationships, sitting across partners and negotiating deals. So what I'm saying is that a hallmark of what we do is our mentorship program. We coach and mentor our staff. And I'm proud to say that I think roughly 40% of the staff is involved in either being a coach or mentoring somebody from that next generation. We also partner with our HR division. I was really excited to see the last program of this managerial program, which we call Unite. They Ignite. So Unite. But they graduated, and I think there were 8 or 10 from investment staff. Not all of them could make it, but those are the types of programs that again are building these areas that are going to become more important I think as intelligence gets commoditized through AI and technology, it's all these other skills. So we're deeply involved in training that next generation. And even as we've been pivoting because it's so important for us to think about it this way, when we moved into a hybrid environment, recognizing that people wanted to work remotely, but also benefit from training, we started having junior staff travel with senior staff to create even more venues for that mentorship and coaching. And so we continue to evolve and pivot, but that's something that's really a hallmark. We think on the senior team that this is something that we can improve on going forward too. There's some aspects that we're really hoping to improve along the way as well. But hopefully that gives you a little bit of a sense up front of how we're thinking about the next generation. But I'm proud to say we're one of the few organizations, and I try to remind staff about this, that we grow people, and it's not just a statement, but you even see and we've went through one of the largest generational shifts that I think I've seen in an organization, and at least on the investment side too. I'm starting with Chris and I, but all through the organization, and many of our leaders have stepped up, and they were prepared. They competed for these positions. They didn't get them. They competed against external candidates in many cases. But to me, that's where the rubber hits the road. This next generation has been ready to take on higher responsibilities, which is important for us if you think about creating a whole new CalSTRS every dozen years. We're going to be constantly needing to train leaders.
I think Mr. Tang has a follow-up, and then we're going to go to Mr. Juarez.
And so my follow-up to you on that is, Scott, is there thinking of having some sort of a pipeline in reaching out to working with the university and recruiting talents from, university as well? I mean, we have the intern programs, obviously, and we're recruiting from, Berkeley, but are there other plans of reaching other universities and stuff like that, building that pipeline where we're intentionally supporting programs in this area with the mindset of having more diverse audience and talents to recruit from?
Yeah, and there are some structural issues here where I'd love to talk with you and other investment committee members, because I think it's something we can solve. But there's some structural issues which make it difficult for us to have programs like that. So I'd love to engage with you, and that's one of the areas why we believe that this is an area of intentional growth. Another area is just the global talent pool and accessing that more and more over time. While we have, a great internal program of developing the next generation, we do occasionally need to recruit for external talent, and how can we do that more and more globally? And that's, again, a different pipeline that we need to access going forward. So great question. I think, something that's really on our mind, Ken.
Mr. Juarez.
Yeah, Ken mentioned Berkeley. As a loyal Bruin, I want to make sure that we're also reaching out to UCLA. But having said that, let me ask you, so it's great to intuitively feel that we're an organization that is able to promote and bring good people in. Do we have other comparators or models that we can say, well, compared to them, we are doing an excellent job of that? I mean, have we looked at it that way? Do we know what other organizations do?
Yeah, I think if you just looked at our statistics, and we run them now, because I think it is important to communicate this to you and staff. I could show you some of those statistics, but ours would be above average. And part of that, I think, for us is we also believe that culture is a competitive advantage. And the best way to continue to maintain some of that culture is by raising your leadership and growing them, training them over time. Yeah.
Controller Cohn.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I just sitting here listening to the plan, and I'm curious to know what kind of resources are we going to be allocating to this shared plan? And then most importantly, how are we going to measure our success? I guess what is the rate of return going to be on such an investment?
Yeah, great. So great questions. Geraldine will get into a bold goal, which is going to be part of the recommendation to the board to adopt, and that'll be an overarching metric. So I'll let Geraldine talk a little bit about that. And the other question was,
Oh, the rate of return. How are we going to measure? What is the investment going to be? And then how do we measure that investment?
Yeah, so a lot of this is part of the strategic plan that, again, the board will approve and will be rolling out. But I would say in September and November, we'll be bringing a request for staffing resources. And so I'll be engaging with each of you on that. And we've typically brought 5-year staffing requests in the investment committee. And it's built around some of the areas that we've talked about. For example, as we need to become more develop technology as an advantage. That's one clear area of investment for staffing and resources. You know, both in terms of the staffing, but also the technology itself, right? And so we'll be bringing a preview of that technology budget in the July offsite, and then call it in July and September. I'm hoping to meet with you and the other investment committee members on the staffing portion of it, and I'll start to outline. This is for becoming more dynamic in our allocation. This is for the technology transformation. This is to bolster our operations. I'll itemize it with you during that meeting. Hopefully, you'll gain some comfort. But I suspect that between that time and September, November, we'll have ample time to have those discussions. But great question.
Thank you, Madam Controller. Back to Geraldine, you want to continue with the presentation? And I'm sensitive to time, so please.
The question regarding how we're going to measure success, because we are, can you go ahead a few slides? Oh, I have it. Bold goal. So we're actually going to give you a number. In July, we're going to come forward. You saw we gave you historical context on how we outperform, the return based on each one of our staff. We're going to come forward maybe with a funding ratio. In July, you're going to see these are our goals. We think if we do these initiatives, we think over time, this is what we can bring. And it is that. It's to align all of us so that when you're allocating resources and we're focused, we all get a clear vision of what we're trying to do. And it could be just an alpha number, right? Return above all of our costs and our expenses. So we will be coming forward. Here's some areas we're thinking about as we're developing this bold goal. So it has to be that clear and transparent. It's a number or two. It's also managing the risk. We're not going to come forward and say we're giving you this alpha and accepting that we're adding too much risk to the portfolio. So we're going to frame it for you and what it means as far as going forward. And it'll be clear too for staff, because staff will be clear on, okay, this is what I need to do to get there, and it'll keep us really focused. So that is exactly what we hope to do in July. And I'm going to go forward because there's a couple of more areas moving along here. One more slide. Oh, I have it. Someone has this. Okay, there we go. So this is July. We're going to be engaging you. Actually, we'll have Amy McDuffie from Mosaic. We're going to have work groups at the July offsite. We'll have the executive staff, the senior leadership, the investment branch, and all of you. We're going to talk through what does it look like to be successful in the future. We'll be talking about our bold goal. We'll also be talking about some specific areas that you understand. So I'm going to give you an example of that to make it more tangible. We already told you about the tech transformation. That's a specific area we're going to work on. One fund is going to be a specific area. We're going to look at our asset allocation. We're going to think about how we allocate and how we make decisions, such as an overlay. We're going to talk about our talent. All of these areas we'll cover. We will also cover in July, every one of the divisions within the investment branch are looking at their specific area and coming up with areas they're going to grow, including their staffing. And so we'll be bringing that forward. So July's an important meeting to engage, so we will be having engagement with the board. And then you'll see there in September, we'll actually sum all that up, and we'll be coming back with this vision statement for you to review and consider, including staff resources. Scott already mentioned that. In July, you also have the technology resources. And then in September or November, you'll see the final shared vision. And when you approve that, with, of course, taking your input, then all of that will feed into the strategic plan. We're gauging our success. We're coming up with specific initiatives that we're going to work on, and it'll be part of our business plan. So there you have it.
Yeah, one thing before we ended, I forgot one thing in Controller Cohen's question that I wanted to mention, which is that as we grow, as the investment staff grows, the rest of the organization needs to grow with staff. We talked, Ken, about partnering with HR on how we train the next generation to recruit, and we'll need more legal counsel resources. So we'll be transparent and bring that as well. Not only the growth and investment team, but the growth that's needed across the other parts of the organization.
Okay, thank you both. I don't see anyone else in the queue, so we will continue with the agenda. Thank you both. Items 7 and 8 are consent information items, both of which will be addressed in detail in closed session. So does anyone have anything on 7 or 8 that they want to pull at this time? Okay. To be continued in closed session. Items 9, 10, and I believe 11, is it? 9, 10, 11 are consent action. We're pulling consent item 9, and we're bringing that back in July. I spoke with Scott about that earlier. So that's the review of the investment committee charter. Will come back in July at the board offsite. Item 10 is the selection of the private equity consultant. Make sure we put this into the record properly. The consent action on item number 10 is action. Interviews for the private equity board consultant RFP were conducted yesterday, May 26th, by a panel of myself and Vice Chair of the committee, Sharon Hendricks, along with the procurement staff facilitating the process. I want to thank the procurement staff for the excellent job that they always do in procurement. So we are grateful for your support in that process. Also present were CIO Scott Chan and Senior Director Kirsty Jenkinson, who oversees private markets as subject matter experts. The chair and vice chair, we followed the RFP process, and we recommend Makita Investment Group as our private equity consultant. The current contract expires September 30th of 2026, and the investment committee delegates to Scott Chan, our CIO, and the staff to negotiate the final terms of the conditions of the new contract. If there are any questions? Okay, seeing none, we congratulate the Makita team. We look forward to working with you and John and your entire team, and building on what we believe to be a very good relationship to date. You support this community in an extremely professional and responsive manner, and we look forward to building upon that relationship. And we look forward to the terms being negotiated between you and the staff. So thank you for your support to date. We look forward to continued work. Yes, Steve Juarez, Mr. Juarez.
Real quick, how many people were in the competition?
Does staff want to respond to that?
Steve, there was one applicant.
And so that must have been an easy interview then.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't easy.
They didn't really.
What would have been our alternatives?
Well, we're in open session, so we want to be sensitive to that. We could have decided yes, no, or maybe, and based upon the process that they went through and competed for it, and we were very pleased.
I'm just going to continue down this line of questioning. Is it strange that we didn't get more than one applicant?
Let me.
I'd like the staff respond to that.
Let me answer that. I believe it to be something that I haven't generally seen before. But I think part of the reason is that if you look through the history of CalSTRS, we haven't often made decisions to move from consulting staff. And I think the other element to consider is that the type of organizations that could truly service CalSTRS now are probably less than even a handful, given our size and complexity. with Makita being most likely the leader, if you think about private markets and alternative assets in general. But I would say that that's happened over time too. So the level of the number has decreased over time. And then, of course, everyone is looking at the history and determining whether or not they want to submit an application. There were two organizations that did ask questions relative to the RFP, and one applied.
Just pass along my congratulations to Makita.
Thank you, Steve. Item 11 is the approval of the minutes of March 4th, 2026, without objection. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Harry, it's Brian.
Yeah, Brian.
Do you want to vote on item 10? That's a consent agenda.
Thanks. Is it a roll call?
It's an action.
Yeah, why don't you just do a roll call?
For Director of Finance, Ms. Whitaker.
Here.
Controller Cohen.
Aye.
Chairperson Keeley.
Aye.
Mr. Tang.
Aye.
Ms. Yamamoto.
Aye.
Ms. Bradford.
Yes.
Ms. Hendricks.
Yes.
Mr. Gunning.
Yes.
For the Superintendent of Public Instruction, Mr. Patterson.
Yes.
Mr. Juarez.
Aye.
Item pass.
Item passes. Item 11 is the approval of the minutes without objection. Brings us to item 12, which is the first look at the work plan for 26-27. As a reminder to the committee, we look at a work plan we adopted in July, so this is the first glance at it, knowing that we have the big strategic goals of the total fund, resilient portfolio, and technology. Scott, anything you want to tease out in this for the committee, knowing that we have time between now and adoption in July to make amendments or changes or edits to this? So please, Scott.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to identify a couple of quick things. You heard about the shared vision timeline, and underneath portfolio resiliency, we talked a little bit about that, alignment in particular. So in September, you'll have education on the uniqueness of private markets and how we engage, because there's different tools there depending on the structure of that. And again, as we move towards February, we're looking to develop private market priorities to mirror our public market priorities. And so this is an exercise where I think Harry and others, can we have ample time to discuss with the board, which we will, on what should be our engagement priorities within the private markets. As also part of the portfolio resiliency, it's also about asset allocation, diversification, and portfolio construction. So you see a number of elements for the one fund approach, educating on our policy framework, educating on a more dynamic form of asset allocation. I just wanted to point that out to you so you get a good understanding of what's ahead for the next fiscal year.
Steve, and then Karen.
I'm assuming that the adoption of whatever private equity plan we come up will be public. Meaning we will produce something that people can look at and read and say, oh, I agree with that, or I disagree with that.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
Stakeholders, I'm thinking primarily.
Yeah, as we develop the priorities, and this will be, in February, we do that for all of the stewardship priorities for public markets. So we'll do that again for the private markets.
Yeah. I'm guessing that'll make some people very happy to have that information.
Yeah, it will be disclosed in a report that's going to be part of a consent information item in February.
Karen?
Thank you, Harry. I don't know if this is the right time to ask about it, but since we're talking about the work plan, have there been any interest or research or whatever into refreshing the investment beliefs?
I think that's a great question, and I think that there will be a refresh and opportunities. I'd love to, have your thoughts on that, because I know it's been something that you've been thinking about, Karen, in the idea of as we engage in the private markets, that could be one juncture, as we consider the one fund approach and how we might want to that could be another juncture, and even the shared vision. So I think that there could be opportunities here because it's been a while since we've last created an investment belief. But those are three areas to consider.
Okay, thank you.
And I would think that next year, given tomorrow, we're going to receive a report from the full board on the work that the subcommittee on AI has been doing. There's some recommendations for how the full board will be educated, but how each committee should be thinking about AI. Clearly, there's some oversight, there's policy issues, there's guardrails. So we'll be working with the appropriate consultants, advisors, governance people, that will be integrated appropriately into the investment committee oversight work that we do have. So we'll learn more, but I want to make sure that that's on everyone's radar screen. And might get more discussion tomorrow when that report, which is excellent, is before the full board on the IA working committee that's been working on that for about a year. Okay, all right, thanks, Scott. Where are we? Were there any information requests that we had? Christine?
It's the, just the AI, legal opinion on whether AI could potentially impact fiduciary duty.
Right, thank you for that. The draft agenda is there for your reference. I don't think there's anything that has to be highlighted. Any comments from the public on any of the items that were on the agenda or otherwise?
We have no members of the public in queue.
Thank you, Samantha. We will break for lunch. Thank you. We'll be back at 2 o'clock, and we'll go into closed session at 2. Public is done for the day. Yeah, thank you, Sharon.